to Welcome to Jackie's Lyric Corner. I am Jackie, and I'm just going to use this as an update video. I haven't even bought a book. Well, I did buy one book, but I don't have it yet. Actually, it might be coming today, hopefully. Fortunately, it's raining, so that means I have to go out in the rain to get the book. I mean, I'm just so glad I'm not scheduled to work today because I would not want to deal with the rain. But I do have to go back tomorrow early in the morning. Like, my manager, she didn't, like, it was one of these things where I was asking about it because I get late morning, or, like, that's when my shifts usually start. Like, occasionally she throws in a hour earlier than the time I've mostly been scheduled for, but this time she, like, threw me for a loop, and I think she felt bad about it because I did say something, but I was trying not to say, like, I was bothered by it. I was trying to be like, oh, I'm surprised, you usually don't do this, and I just was kind of like, wondering why, I mean, what, and she was telling me that they have people, it was kind of, they didn't have anyone else to call, and I live very close by, so I was trying not to be like, oh, how dare you give me this time, I don't like it. That's why I was trying to be like, oh, I'm surprised, and I was assuring her, oh, I can do it, because she was like, oh, were you supposed to have that day off or something, and, I was telling her, oh, no, I can do it. Like, I was trying not to sound annoyed. I don't know, maybe just bringing it up and asking her about it, just demonstrated that I was annoyed, which, I was just like, I actually, the only problem is that I won't be able to get up super early to go for my walk, because it means if I want to do that, I would have to get up at like 4 or 5 a.m., and I wouldn't have time, and I'm not getting up that early, so, if anything, I can always do my walk, either I could skip it for the day, or just do my walk in the afternoon, we'll see. But I mean, I'm gonna get exercise anyway when I'm at work, so. Anyway, so that's tomorrow. Super early, but, that's the only thing. Other than that, yeah, I get off really early, like early afternoon, so that's really good. I mean, I wish, though, it was on a day where I have the next day off, because I'm still working the next 3 days after that, but it's all good. And I might be asking off in February. I might need to ask off in February because I might not have a ride. But anyway, let's talk about what I'm reading. So I just finished Noli Me Tangere. Noli Me Tangere, by Jose Rizal. And, it's funny, I posted on Instagram that this was my first book of the year. Now, I have a relative that by marriage, that I communicate with on occasion. Like, she wishes me happy birthday, we exchange holiday wishes and everything. And so, I don't, I think I met her once when at my grandfather's funeral, but I don't even know if I met her then, I don't remember. Like, she lives very far away, and, she commented on my post, and it's funny, she said they were assigned to read that book in high school, and it was just so funny. And, I feel like a lot of times when you read international books, there is always that chance that you're gonna come read a book that was assigned to reading in the country that book is written from. So it's funny, because we have books that we have to read, that we're assigned to read in high school, in middle school, and that, these other countries also do. So you might be reading a book that they had to read. Like, who knows, there might, like, some of the books that we, like, Les Miserables, or Hunchback of Notre Dame, or, like, even Count of Monte Cristo, although that book is super long, so maybe they might not read that one, because I don't think high schools read assigned super long books. Yeah, so those books might have been assigned in France. And, you know, my dad did point out that, yeah, that's kind of the one thing that a lot of the school systems have in common is that there are books that they are required to read in any country. So it's kind of funny reading those books that when a country was assigned, and you read them for fun. Which also, what's really interesting, another thing I observed about reading that book is, like, I'm trying to get in touch more with my Filipino heritage. And, while I'm just going to call her aunt because it's respectful to call, in the Philippines, it's respectful to call your older relatives auntie and uncle. So, my auntie, she probably, even though, yeah, she's from, you know, she wasn't around during the time period that book was written and the book is about, but she probably has a closer connection, emotional connection to it because it's about her birth country, about her people, where she comes from. And me, yes, they're mine, but I'm only 25%. My dad is American. My grandmother married an American man, and so I have not experienced that stuff. So emotionally, I'm not as connected to the book. Like, it's a loose connection for me because I don't emotionally feel as strong about it. I did enjoy the book, despite how it's kind of a tragic book, a tragic story. And I am apprehensive about it because I don't know a lot about the history. I'm like, I almost feel like I should have read the history of the Philippines first before I dived into this book, but I really wanted to read this book. I was excited to read it because it's like classic from, the country that is part of my identity. So it puts me in a weird place and makes me a little nervous to do a review on it, actually. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone that watches my channel that's also Filipino, and maybe more Filipino than I am, because, like I said, I'm only 25%, my mom is half. But it's really interesting, and I wonder if other people run into this problem, this feeling of reading a book that will mean something to another country, whether you're related or not, and you're not as closely connected to it because you don't experience it. And we're very fortunate in the U.S. mostly. I say mostly because not every group of people is fortunate or is privileged, and so we don't experience some of the things that these other countries have experienced. So which is, I think, why for a lot of people it's very important to read more diversely, so that you can at least be sympathetic and understanding and aware of this kind of stuff. Now, this is in the far past, when the Spaniards were running the Philippines and were the government of the Philippines, way before they even gained their independence, because they didn't gain their independence, I think, until the 90s. Don't quote me on that, but I think it wasn't until more recent, more like in the 90s when they finally got their independence. 90s or 80s, I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely a very enlightening and interesting, very different experience for me than for someone who had to read the book in high school, and were part of that history was their history, or at least their ancestors' history. So yeah, it was a very interesting experience. Like I said, I'm gonna read the history of the Philippines at some point. I think I should read it sooner rather than later, actually. I have thought about picking it up. That's why I can't set TBRs, permanent TBRs, which I'm not doing because there's this pressure, and then because all of a sudden I might be motivated to read something else. Like I said, right now I'm thinking of picking up the history of the Philippines as my nonfiction, even though originally I wanted to read Russian Blood as my nonfiction, which I could read both of them. Nothing wrong with that. But I only follow being motivated to read both of them. So anyway, I'm giving Edith Wharton another shot because I was planning on DNFing her as an author, but it wasn't because she's a bad author. Like, I do like her stories, I just don't absolutely love her work. I don't like her. Like, I thought The Age of Innocence was a favorite, but thinking about it now, after a while, I was like, it's not really. Like, I like it, I enjoy it. And I like Edith and Fromm and Summer and all that. I like the stories, but I don't love them. I don't want to sink my teeth into them. So I was thinking about DNFing the author, but then I watched season 2 of The Gilded Age and finally got around to watching interviews because I didn't want to risk being spoiled for season 2. And so I waited and finished season 2 of The Gilded Age, and watching these panel interviews, you know, a lot of the authors, like Christine, not authors, a lot of the actors brought up authors like Christine, like, okay, rewind. A lot of the actors like Christine Baranski brought up Edith Wharton and how she kind of inspired the Gilded Age because she was writing about it. She was there during the Gilded Age. It was her experience. And Julian Fellows is a big fan of her work, of Edith Wharton. So it's like, let me go ahead and try and give her another shot. And actually, as I'm reading this, I am reminded of the Gilded Age. Because the premise is this woman, these girls, the St. Georges, are having trouble coming out in American society. They're not as popular. They're not as, like, accepted in these certain places. And, you know, of course, at the time, mom's worried about getting them married. Like, the oldest girl is of the right age to get married and find a husband. And she also is trying to find a governess for her younger daughter, Annabelle. The other daughter's name is Virginia. For Annabelle, called Nan. Nan is her nickname. And Nan, of course, is like, does not want one. She's heard horror stories and doesn't like the idea of having a babysitter, and knows that this woman is going to agree with her mother and everything of how she can do things. And it made me think a little bit of Gladys. And I think there's a plot point in, like, the first season, I think, when Miss Russell, Bertha Russell, is holding her daughter back and is like, I don't want her daughter to come out like yet. And she talks about hiring a governess, and Gladys is like, no way, you're not gonna hire a governess. I'm of age, I'm ready to come out in society. And eventually it does happen, she does not get a governess, but this girl, Nan, does. And she is an English governess. And Nan at first does not like her, is all set up to, give her a hard time and scare her away, kind of like in Sound of Music. That's what the kids try to do. But then she actually starts to kind of get attached to her and see her uses and see that the governess is actually, she's not bad. Her name is Miss Tess Valley, I think, the governess. And she sees the girl, Virginia and Nan, and the Elmsworth girl struggling to come out in society and be allowed to come into the, in fact, she has to ask, she's one of the gentlemen that is marrying one of the girls, not these girls, but another girl, Conchita, who has a bit of a reputation because her mom is a divorcee. And that's a no-no at all. No, that is not accepted by society at all. The daughter does get a husband, an English gentleman, and turns out that Miss Tess Valley knows him and has a history with him, so she's able to tell him, invite the St. George girls, because they're going to be bridesmaids in your wedding to Conchita, so you should invite them and help them out. And then she decides to suggest their mom to have them come out, but go in England, go on a trip to London for a period of time and come out of society there. And then when American society realizes that they've been to London, to England, then maybe eventually they will be accepted and beloved in American society. They will be part of, the public of American society. So they go there and they're going to go find husbands, lords and dukes for husbands. It already kind of sets up a bit some potential love stories, romances. One of the Nan with this guy named Guy Thwart, who his family is not doing well financially. It's just him and his dad. The mom died years ago, so his dad is putting pressure on him. But they both have voracious appetites when it comes to spending their money. And Guy is which I do not like that name for a male. I don't know why. I think it's silly. Sorry if your name is Guy, but I just think it's a little silly to call your child Guy. Especially when nowadays it's used as a term of referring to a male. a male in general, as a guy. But Guy Thornton, so he has very differing tastes from his father. His father doesn't approve of it, and he's trying to find a wife, but he's also like wants to work on the family business, and he's fulfilling his dreams of the profession he wants, and he's has invited these the St. George girls to meet them, invite them over, but of course the dad has some preconceptions of American girls, of Americans, and doesn't think very highly of us. And you also have the other guy that I think is going to be the potential love interest. Probably more for Virginia, I think, and that's a duke. And of course, he is the trope of, I want to be known for more than just being a duke. I don't want someone to care about my title. I want someone to marry me for me and to love me for me. And his mom is putting pressure on him. And of course, I don't remember if the mom said anything about Americans. I don't even know. But him and his mom do have preconceived notions about Americans too. Which I feel like still today there's a little bit of that, where we are a little critical of, where in England they're critical of us and we are critical of Brits. So yeah, it's not as bad. I mean, I don't think people are as snobby, but I still feel like it's there a little bit. But yeah, that's as far as I've got so far. I'm really liking it. It reminds me of Gilded Age, and I think I like this plot a little bit more, of these girls trying to come out and find husbands. I find it really interesting. Like, I like that kind of story in a historical, or like in a classic, where it's not my, my time period, the time period I'm living in. Like, I don't want to read about that. I want to read about the past, because it's a sort of escapism. Even if people still kind of do similar things today. I mean, that's in one of the Gilded Age interviews, when they were talking to Cynthia Nixon, they, saying, she was saying how they still have similar elements today. Like, there's still a little social ladder going on and everything. Like, nowadays, it's more about the tech companies and tech people. And they're, so there's a little bit of that new money. And of course, I'm part of a middle class. I don't live in a city, so I don't see a lot of that stuff. Classism and everything in my world, as it may exist. It might still exist today. So that's why I don't know if I want to read contemporary stories like that. I will give them a shot to watch them, like something like Succession, which is kind of about that. But because I want a sense of escapism, basically, and that's what this is providing. Like I said, there are elements of Edith Wharton that I like. But there are elements that, but I don't always love her stories. And I have 3 more books, and I'm so mad that I think I accidentally gave away The Custom of the Country, because I hadn't fully decided if I was going to walk away from her work. But I'm wondering if maybe I took it off the shelf and then put it in the pile for my donated books, and then, put it in the bag that I was going to get rid of before I decided that I was done. I was not going to continue with Edith Wharton's work. And of course I changed my mind. So, unless it's like lost somewhere in my room, but I don't know where. Like, I've stuck my hand behind the other books to check, and I keep constantly looking at my Penguin Black Spines to see if it's there, and I just didn't notice it, and it's not. I looked where I used to keep my Edith Wharton books originally on my shelf before I redid it again, and I didn't see it. And I just recently, back in, I think, early November, I took off my books and decided to change the shelf, the way I set my books up, and so I didn't see it, I didn't come across it, so the only thing I can think of is I accidentally put it in the donation pile. Because I know I bought it. I bought it at the Old Country Bookshop, and I'm kind of disappointed I did. But I'm planning on first, before I decide to re-buy it, I'm going to read this one and then Twilight Sleep. And then there's one more I have of hers, and I don't know if it's a collection or, I think it's a collection. I think it's similar to the collection when I first started getting into Edith Wharton, with Summer and Ethan Throm in there and everything. Like Old New York, that's what it is. It's called Old New York. But yeah, so that's what I'm currently reading right now, the Buccaneers. There's a lot of books I'm thinking of, like, I'm thinking of reading Persuasion, and as you know, when I just wrote a little note to my sister, she was the one who, she gave me a bunch of, like, some books that are Jane Austen related, and the two, Pride and Prejudice, the Colin Firth version, and then the Persuasion with Ciarán Hinds. And so I wanted to do, I was telling her, I might do another, not just in July, but I'm thinking about doing a Jane Austen in another month. Jane Austen, in February or something. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Now I lost my train of thought. Okay, I was talking about Jane Austen, and I was telling my sister that I got, I was writing thank you note to her and talking about how I'm gonna, I might have to do another Jane Austen themed month. I remember. I was bringing that up because I was thinking about reading Persuasion in January, but I might save it for maybe February or something, which I think maybe I should do that, like, because I'm already thinking about it, and instead of waiting, just do it in February. Jane Austen themed reading month in February. But which means that I might not have anything new to read in unless I buy Sedition and Lady Susan. I might not have anything to read in July. But anyway, but I was also thinking about Blood. I think it's called Blood Heir as well, and it's kind of a fantasy inspired by the Anastasia storyline, or history, I should say, because it actually is true. And then I also, because recently I watched one of Mike's book reviews where he did a review of The Library Policeman, which is in the 4 Past Midnight collection, and I've been meaning to reread those, all 4 of those, because I've read 3 of them. I just have read Secret Window, Secret Garden. I think it's either Secret Garden, Secret Window, or Secret Window, Secret Garden. Because the problem is I've seen the Johnny Depp adaptation, which I love that movie, and I was not feeling motivated to read that story. Because, like, I already seen the movie. I don't need to read it. But I'm sure there are enough differences where I could still enjoy reading the story. So I've been wanting to read it before I get motivated again to watch the movie. But, and he did a Library Policeman review, and it made me think of it. I was like, I might want to read this one, right now, or at least read one of the ones from that collection. Because I feel like I just kind of glazed over those. Like, I just zoomed past them because I was just trying to read them, and I barely remember things about them. Like, I remember a little bit about the Sundog, and I remember a little bit about the Library Policeman, but I think I kind of glazed over it when I read it, and I feel like I want to reread it again. And I think part of the problem is also I was trying to go through my, read it, because I hadn't read all the books in there, and it took me so long to finally read every story in there, even though I have not read Secret Window, Secret Garden. So I was just, like, I think I just kind of sped through it, just to check it off, to mark the box, check the box. So I need to read it again. And also, I got a version of it that I liked. So I need to give it this another. I've been, Mike's book review reminded me of that I want to reread those 4 stories again, especially the one that I technically have not read, but I've only seen the movie. So I kind of know what happens. But there probably are enough changes that it could still surprise me. So there's a lot of books I'm thinking about reading. So I'm not even doing a TBR. Like, I decided that this year I was going to do my monthly wrap-ups again. but I'm obviously not doing a TBR, which it's too late anyway, because it's January, 6th, I think. January 6th. So I can't really, so there's no sense in doing a TBR now, because, like I said, I'm already changing my mind and going, and like I said, I did that old habit of taking out a bunch of books, that more than enough books that I could read within the month, and I just can't, and I can't narrow it down. So basically I'm not doing a TBR, but I'm going to do a monthly wrap-up. Anyway, so, that's really all I want to talk about. I don't have a lot to talk about. I'm not reading a lot. I'm mostly focusing on the Buccaneers. And like I said, hopefully I'll be getting a book today that I ordered. It's the second book in the Hearthstone trilogy, which is a retelling of Pride and Prejudice, but a fantasy retelling. It kind of does a similar thing to Tooth and Claw, where there's dragons involved. But instead of the dragons being the main characters, the characters are dragon riders. So I'm gonna read. I'm just worried that I won't have anything to read for Jane Austen July, or I'll just be rereading stuff. But I kind of want to do a Jane Austen inspired reading month, another one sooner rather than having to wait until July to do it. But anyway, and at least I got a fantasy book that is kind of Jane Austen themed, so that should help, because I'm always feeling like, oh, I'm neglecting my fantasy and it's my favorite genre. but you gotta read whatever you're in the mood for. So anyway, that's all I gotta say. I hope you all are enjoying your reading, and give a thumbs up if you like this video. Click subscribe if you haven't. Click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified when I upload my videos. And I hope you are enjoying your reading. Would love to know in the comments below what you are currently reading. And I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.